Most B2B SaaS companies completely mess up while doing meta advertising, and that's often because they invest all of their time and resources into the front end while trying to attract new prospects and completely ignore the back end where the conversions actually happen. And that's the exact shift I'm going to walk you through today. So we no longer want to focus on just paid ads, but we want to shift our attention into the holistic revenue system that drives them forward. So I'm going to take you through the exact systems and processes I've installed into my own business, but I also install into my clients' B2B SaaS businesses as well. And just to give you somewhat of an early indication that this does actually work, for one of our clients that we recently bought on, in the first month of working together, we generated over 500 leads and multiple tens of thousands of dollars in revenue. And if you aren't familiar with who I am, my name is Clingain. I'm the founder of Ascension, and what we do is we partner with B2B SaaS and tech companies to help them build out scalable client acquisition systems of their own. And while I'm going to give you everything you need in this video to build this process out yourself, if you are interested in what it would look like built out, done for you, you can book a call with me personally using the first link in the description, and I'll walk you through step by step of what that would look like for your business. Now, before we jump into the exact systems and processes that we use, let's take a look at why most SaaS ad funnels actually break. So starting at the top, the prospect will see the ad. They're then more often than not pushed to a generic landing page with minimal to no qualification in between. And if you're running a low ticket solution, that landing page is often optimized for free trials, which is a problem we'll discuss later in the video. However, regardless if you're running a high ticket or low ticket funnel, most B2B SaaS companies we speak with and work with, they initially underestimate the awareness and intent that these prospects are entering the funnel with. And because of that, they don't have a true structured conversion path for them. So ultimately, they're running campaigns that are focused on traffic and not monetization, which over a long enough period of time is going to heavily impact your CAC to LTV ratio, which is going to turn the ad economics upside down, which makes it impossible to scale long term. And while I'm going to walk you through exactly how to fix this issue, the best place for us to start is going to be your offer. And that's because everything we do is downstream of the offer. And what exactly do I mean by offer? I'm not talking about highlighting the 3 key features that your product has that your competitors don't. I'm talking about highlighting the measurable transformation that users can achieve by using your solution. So we need to position ourselves as not just another SaaS subscription and another thing to add to their tech stack, but as a vehicle to get them to the results they want to achieve. And the best way to do that while advertising is we want to just focus on clarity over brand. So your paid ads and your organic brand messaging do not need to be aligned. Yes, of course, that is the dream scenario, but more often than not, these prospects don't know who you are, they don't know what your solution is, and they don't know what it does. So unless you're a unicorn and you're the standard SaaS that's under 3 to 5 years old, let's say, you need to be direct in your messaging. Like I said, really focus on the outcome and the results you can drive for a prospect's business. And you might look at some of these bigger companies, like HubSpot, for example. You might say, Oliver, HubSpot's doing this, HubSpot's doing that. Without knowing who you are, you're not HubSpot. Unless you're spending $1 million per month on advertising, you need to be direct in the outcome you help prospects achieve. And that's where I see SaaS companies consistently going wrong. So they'll put an ad out, they'll list 3 of their key features that they do better than competitors, they'll slap their logo underneath it and call it a day. When the reality is, on the front end with the advertisement, we need to be sparking curiosity and building some urgency, and then we handle all of that education on the back end about who you are and what you do. Which means you need to shift your focus away from being an advertising giant like HubSpot and prioritize optimizing your offer for cold traffic. And what do I mean by that? We need to take a look at what a high converting SaaS offer actually looks like. And if you are offering a low ticket SaaS product, I do have an entire video dedicated on how to turn a low ticket SaaS subscription to a high ticket upfront offer that's optimized for paid ads. So if you do want to dive a little bit deeper into this topic, I'd go recommend checking that out after this video. But regardless if you're offering a high ticket or low ticket solution, this is the formula you want to follow. So we want X result in Y time frame plus risk reversal. So the key takeaways we really want to focus on here are: 1, we want a quantifiable outcome. So whether that be increases in revenue, time savings, cost efficiency increases, whatever your solution helps prospects achieve, we really want to hone in on that. Then point 2 and 3, We really want a clear delivery mechanism and a logical how you get there. So that's essentially a breakdown of what your solution is and then the guided support you can give to prospects to help them achieve their goals. Then 4, once again, we don't want to just position this as another piece of tech that they need. We want to position it as a package solution. And that means we need to show the prospect how to get from their current state to their desired state and prove that we're the vehicle to help them do that. And if you have a high ticket solution, you should probably already be doing something along these lines. If you have a low ticket product, you might not be doing this. But as I mentioned, there is a whole video dedicated on how to make this happen for your business. I'll link that down in the description so you can go check that out. But now that we've got our offer refined, let's get into the meat and potatoes of how we actually turn this into closed revenue. So we've got our offer in place. Now we need to look at the funnel that actually drives it forward. So our go-to choice of advertising is Meta. So that's Facebook and Instagram. Of course, you can substitute this for Google, YouTube ads, LinkedIn ads. At the end of the day, this is just the starting point. What you do afterwards is what actually matters. And there's 2 variations at this point of funnels we typically roll out for our clients. So there's the standard opt-in funnel. So we can collect contact information on Facebook, on Instagram, and we have prospects answer a few qualifying questions. Very straightforward. And the alternative to that is a landing page plus an application. So it creates a little bit more friction, but ultimately in the long term, the prospects that come through the funnel are going to be a bit more qualified with a bit more intent. So on this landing page, we'll have a VSL, which I've got some tips for, which I'll share in just a second. They watch the VSL, they're then presented with an application form with a few more questions, and then we get their contact information, regardless of which opt-in we essentially go for. So whether that be straight opt-in on Meta or application, they're then sent to a booking page. But before we go over there, if you are going to run landing page plus application, you do want to put a VSL or some sort of video here to make prospects understand what your solution is. Here are just some tips for that. So we really want these to be direct and not just hype driven. You don't want to just go onto this video, talk about how good your solution is. Be direct, be like, this is what we help you solve. Pull it back to the offer we had mentioned earlier. Maybe showcase a little bit of the product, maybe a mini demo essentially, then explain the problem, the solution, the offer, and the call to action. And VSLs can be pretty unique. It really depends on what your solution is. So in terms of length, 6 to 8 minutes is typically considered pretty short. 15 to 20 is considered pretty long. However, my sweet spot is right in between that. So that's what I shoot for my video sales letters to be. That's what I script and edit for my clients' video sales letters to be. So we show off a bit of everything, but I have seen VSLs be as long as an hour. So it really depends on what your mission is and what you're trying to solve for. And then you can work everything around that. But if this is your first time shooting a video sales letter, I typically shoot for right in between the both of these. So now you understand a little bit about the VSL and both options you have. Like I said, regardless, they're both going to go to a booking page. They'll book in a time, they'll schedule their demo to meet with your team. And ultimately, this right here is where most SaaS funnels will end. Once they get booked in, that's it. That's kind of the name of the game. However, this is where things get unique on our end. And this is going to be the difference maker in taking your leads and turning them into actual closed revenue. So with the funnels we build out, the next step after they booked in is they get sent to a confirmation page. And a lot of times SaaS companies will just make this a standard thank you page. Look forward to talking to you soon. This is where we really want to start to nail prospects with content because like I shared earlier, these are cold leads. They're going to come in at different levels of awareness and buying intent. This is where we have the opportunity to educate them and nurture them before the demo call. So what we typically build this out as is we have a what happens next video, quick 2 minutes. Then you can't see it in this screenshot, but underneath this, I'll show you the full page. So we've got our headline up here. We've got a quick 2-minute video there. And then we have a bunch of videos underneath here, and we call these breakout videos. So what these do is they essentially pre-handle any objection, any questions you might have. You can load this page with case studies. You can load it with social proof because ultimately this is going to be the first thing they see. This is going to be the first interaction with your company after they book in. So we want to give them as much information to consume, as much content to consume as possible because what we're building towards, so we call it the 7-11-4 framework. And what that means is research studies have shown that the average sophisticated buyer needs a minimum of 7 hours of engagement with your business to trust enough to buy from you. needs to be across 11 different touch points across 4 different channels. So we really want to be pre-nurturing these prospects, so when they show up to the demo call, they're essentially ready to buy, and they've already kind of self-qualified themselves because they know if they're a fit or not. So we load our confirmation page up with content to really kind of help them do that. Then we've also got a pre-call process. Now, once they book in, we typically have 48 to 72 hours. Sometimes we can bring it down to 24 hours, but typically we got about 2 to 3 days to really nurture these prospects. And within our pre-call process, we have 4 pillars we really like to focus on. That's pillar 1, emails; pillar 2, content retargeting; pillar 3 is the sales follow-ups; and then pillar 4 is SMS and calendar reminders. Now I'm going to walk you through each of these one by one. So we'll start off with our email sequences. So within the 4 pillars of the pre-call sequence in emails, we also have 4 pillars underneath that. So we initially have the engagement sequence, the education sequence, the objection handling sequence, and the risk reversal sequence. And as soon as a lead comes in, we typically like to start to send 4 to 6 emails per day before the sales call. So with the engagement sequence, like I said, we want to use our ads to capture curiosity and build a little bit of urgency, but the education and the nurturing all happens on the back end. Now, email 1, we're going to introduce the brand, and this is what they get hit with right away: a little bit of introduction about yourself and your company, and depending on what stage you're at, we can also introduce the founder. Email 2, that's sent a few hours later. We introduce the offer we built out plus the guarantee. Email 3, we break down the system behind delivery, so pretty much a summary of your solution. Then email 4 is the primary benefit of the solution plus the offer overall. And that takes us to pillar 2, which is the education sequence. So email 1 in the education sequence, we're going to lay out the fundamental beliefs. So let's keep the example simple for this. Let's say you run an AI content creation platform that helps marketing teams create a ton of LinkedIn posts, saving them time. So the fundamental beliefs might be that AI copywriting sucks and it's impossible to write good LinkedIn posts without spending hours doing it yourself. And then we start to answer these questions throughout the emails. So email 2, it's going to be highlight the process without the solution. So does your team spend 8 hours per day writing a single LinkedIn post? Now, throughout the rest of the emails, we're going to educate and highlight another 1 to 2 pain points. Email 4, we're going to educate and highlight another 1 to 2 pain points. Email 5, we're going to educate and highlight another 1 to 2 pain points. And then throughout each of these emails, of course, we're answering how your solution helps solve these problems. Because once we're through the education sequence, they now are starting to understand the value of your solution. Now we've got to start pre-handling the objections. We've got a whole sequence dedicated to that. So what we typically do with our clients, we have them list out all of their frequently asked questions on sales calls, and then we write emails for each of those. And while many of these might be about the solution itself, we can also get into things like pricing, tech setup, any integrations. The more touch points we can have, the better, and the more objections we can handle before the demo call, the better as well. Because we want our closers closing and not educating. We want all of that handled before the demo. And then to pillar 4, the risk reversal sequence. So this is sent just a few hours before that demo. We want to send them an email reminding them of the offer, then an email reminding them of the guarantee, and then it's time for the demo call. And you might be thinking, this is a lot of touch points. Is this not just spamming them? And that is a great question, and I do acknowledge it is a lot of touch points. However, the way we need to look at it is these prospects have shown a positive interest in our solution and the outcome we can help them achieve. So by giving them this much information, it's actually going to allow them to make a decision quickly for their business, which is actually of benefit to them. And if you look at each of these emails, we're not just feature dumping, we're not just trying to cold pitch through email. Our objective is to educate each of these prospects as much as possible so they can make a buying decision quickly. Whether that buying decision is in our favor or not, we really just want to help these prospects make the best decision for their business. And generally, the best way to do that is to give them as much information as possible. Then from our perspective, SaaS is a noisy and competitive industry. This allows us to break through that as quickly as possible, and we found this to be the sweet spot. And this is only the first part of our pre-call process. Stage 2, it's going to be, I can organize this, it's going to be content retargeting. So what we do and what we recommend for our clients to do, and what I recommend for you to do as well, is to produce 30 to 40 short form clips. And what these break down to is we want clips answering first order questions, we want clips answering second order questions, Then we want clips for third order questions and objection handling. And these 30 to 40 short form clips will begin to pop up on prospects' feeds after they book the call, and it'll almost look like organic content. And the objective of these clips alongside of our emails is to just continuously move these prospects from one buyer state to the next to the next. So some examples of first order questions that you can begin to produce content around is, what is this product? What does it does? How is it relevant to my business? And that sort of content is going to appeal to people in the super early in the buying process. So they've got early awareness, they're curious, but they're skeptical, and they're still evaluating if they should care. And once they've consumed a few of these clips, as well as our emails, that's going to shift them to the next stage of the buying state, which means we need to start answering some second order questions. And some examples of these is this a good fit for my company's size? Does this integrate with my current tech stack? How does this compare to competitors? Because at this point, these buyers are now problem aware, they're solution aware, and they're actively evaluating options. And once they've consumed this content, as well as some more emails, they'll naturally progress into the final buyer state, which essentially means they're ready to buy. They just need some reassurance. But to get them there, we've got to answer some third order questions, do some more objection handling. And some examples of content to produce here could be, how does pricing work? Can this scale with our current team? What sort of support do we get? And once they've consumed maybe 15 to 20 of these clips on their timeline, they've received our emails, these prospects are no longer cold. They're inching their way to turn into warm buyers. However, to make sure they actually do turn into warm buyers, we've got to make sure the follow-up from our sales teams is dialed in as well, which is where pillar 3 comes into play, where we focus on the sales follow-ups. Now, everything up to this point has been automated. Now we've got to add a touch of human personalization, which is where the sales team comes into play. Now, there's two ways to look at this. If you do have an appointment setter that sets meeting for the closer, you can look at this layout directly. If not, you just have one rep that handles the whole process. Then you combine these two into one chart. But ultimately, the appointment setter, the big goal when a lead comes in, we want our appointment setter either dialing them or sending them a personalized message within 5 minutes. Speed to lead is a crucial KPI we track for ourselves as well as our clients, because if you can contact a lead within 5 minutes of them filling out a form, they're 24 times as likely to convert into a meeting. Whereas if we let that get to 10, drops to 4 times as likely to convert to a meeting. Then every minute after that, that number just continues to decrease. And it's also crucial we get in contact with these prospects right away, because as we're advertising on Meta, it might go a Alex Hormozy clip, our ad, a Joe Rogan clip. We want to make sure we can get in contact with them while we're still top of mind, and dialing them up is going to be the best way to do that. And once we make that first attempt, if the appointment setter is able to get a response, then they do an added qualification. We build some urgency for the meeting to make sure they show up. If they don't respond, then we just repeat that process maybe a few hours later. We recommend dial at least once or twice a day for the next 3 days, and then just let the automations take over from there. However, in the dream scenario where a prospect does pick up, we do want to qualify and set them for the closer. However, what we don't want to do is we don't want this to be a blind handoff from the appointment setter to the closer. So what we like to do is we want our appointment setters to create a group chat. And that group chat is going to have 3 people in it. So it's going to have the appointment setter, the closer, and then the new prospect coming in. And this is a super unique mechanism, but like I shared, everything we've done so far is automated, and more often than not, prospects are able to read that. So this allows us to give a touch of human personalization, which is going to increase our show rate and make the prospect feel like they're being super attended to, which is going to help increase our close rates as well. So once this group chat's been made, the appointment setter is going to send either a video, a voice note, or just a text message, ideally kind of in that order. But the appointment setter can send a message introducing the prospect to the closer. So it can be as simple as, hey, Oliver, just want to quickly introduce you to Daniel. He's building XYZ. You guys are set to meet tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. The closer can then, same thing. We want them to either send a video, a voice note, or a personalized text in that order. The closer can send a message, quick video. Hey, Daniel, great to meet you. I see you're meeting on our calendar tomorrow. Looking forward to speaking with you. And now once they've done that, it's no longer a blind handoff. So the prospect knows who he's going to meet. He's seen his face. He's going to be much more comfortable interacting early on the call. And what this allows the closer to do is it allows them to start building urgency for the call. So like I said, more human personalization, and it allows them to send any relevant content beforehand. They can start to send sales assets, case studies, testimonials, all of that sort of content that just nurtures the prospect even further. So when they do show up to these demo calls, They're essentially already pre-closed. They just need to ask a few logistical questions. And this small adjustment alone in your sales process can have a massive impact. And I'd actually like you to try this out right now. Start rolling this out today. Just let your appointment setter know, let your closer know. This is what you guys want to start testing out. And I promise you the results are going to be noticeable. But now we've covered 3 of the 4 main pillars in our pre-call process. The first 3, that's kind of our juice. But the 4th one is to not be overlooked either. That's going to be our SMS and calendar reminders. And you might not think these are overly relevant, but these do have the biggest impact on show rate. And the way I like to look at it, if you look at the big picture of the sales process, if nothing else changes throughout that, but you can increase your show rate by 5%, you're going to increase revenue by 5%. So we set up reminders on 2 systems. So we set up SMS text reminders and then email reminders. Then we set them at a 24-hour reminder, a 2-hour reminder, and a 15-minute reminder. And let's say we credit each of these reminders with even just a small 2% variation in show rate. If that's 2%, that's 2%, that's 2%, that's a 6% difference in show rate. And I can guarantee you that 6% in show rate is going to be enough to make or break your ad funnel. And if you add that variation across each reminder, let's say we make this side 6% and this side 6%, we're now looking at 12% difference in show rate, which is enough to completely economically change your CAC to LTV when it comes to paid ads. So yes, while this pillar might not be the most glamorous, it might be the most important. And that's the breakdown of our 4-pillar pre-call process that we tie into our entire ad funnel. Even if you just take one of these pillars and implement it into your business right now, I can promise you there's going to be a significant impact on how you run your paid acquisition systems. And as I shared at the beginning of this video, I've given you all of the resources you need to begin implementing this on your own. However, if you do want it built out for you, you can book in a call with me personally using the first link in the description, and we'll discuss what that looks like for your business. But if you have watched up to this point, be sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.